Hey guys, I'm back again for another episode. and this one is probably going to be a bit on the vulnerable side for me. I've kind of been back and forth about if I should go here or not, but it's because it's a hard place for me to go. That's kind of where I'm going with this. So this morning I woke up and this is kind of actually a piggyback off of the last episode I posted about just this concept of I don't know and impermanence, and then descending into your chaos of the underworld and just not really knowing what's going on and trying to make sense of everything. And it's kind of how my life has felt lately. I've just, I don't know, been lost, and then I feel like I kind of find something, and then lost, and then I feel like I kind of find something, and it's kind of this yo-yo back and forth of all these outward pursuits that feel great, and then they feel empty, and then they feel great, and then they feel empty, and then I kind of like yo-yo with myself back and forth. And so the past couple of days, actually, ever since I recorded that last one about impermanence, I've been just feeling these calls and these just this message inside of myself to tap into more humility and vulnerability in my life, and true humility and vulnerability. Like I often speak about these things, but I feel like I feel like I'm hypocritical in what I say versus what I do, because true vulnerability is really rough, and we can be vulnerable to an extent, like chosen vulnerability, controlled, predictable vulnerability, and that's great because you can kind of make sense of it, right? It's like my episode on fear. It's like, yes, I'm being vulnerable, but that's still very controlled. It's still like kind of a smaller situation, one situation, predictable, work environment. That's one level of vulnerability, and then you get kind of deeper and deeper into the spectrum. And I've been feeling this call lately to kind of dive deeper into the spectrum of vulnerability and right my wrongs, and really take accountability for the things that I've done, and that's not easy to do. I look at myself and I want to have all of the answers. I want to be the person helping. I want to be the superior person. I just like knowing. I don't like not knowing. Not knowing is really scary for me. It's very scary for me. And so that's why a lot of my outward pursuits have been very self-absorbed, like making Instagram videos, making this podcast, and feeling like I need to be like some sort of motivational speaker, and I need to be out there and motivating people to change their lives and motivating people to do better and dive into themselves and fix themselves. But so much of my effort and my outward pursuits have been spent on that instead of actually bettering myself and really paying attention to myself and what I'm doing. And like I said, it kind of comes full circle, listen to your own advice, right? I did an episode on that, and it's like, okay, so I'm telling everybody else to do all these things. Am I really doing these things? I've been feeling that. I've been feeling this call lately to just mend my relationships that I feel like I've broken and the people that I've pushed away. And every time I think about doing that, it scares me, and I like kind of run back into my little hole, and I'm like, oh, I don't need to do that right now. Maybe that relationship really isn't that broken, and maybe maybe I can do it later or whatever. But as I go on, as each day comes, and it's only been a couple days since I did that last episode, I just feel like I should, I'm getting this stronger feeling to like right my wrongs, because I feel like I'm so closed off and so shut off to life and my relationships and even my extended family. There's a huge like wall between me and them right now. For some things that happened with my wedding, I feel it in the air. Even I feel it. That's a story for another day. But that, a lot of my friendships I've pushed away, and I don't even know why. It's interesting. It's like I feel like I've had this awakening the past couple of years, and I feel very isolated because of it, because I've realized a lot of things about myself, and and my past and who I am and who I'm not, or at least I like to think I've realized these things, and I've kind of, pushed everybody away who wasn't on a similar path as me. Part of me thinks that was right to do. Part of me is not so sure that that was right to do, and I'm trying to like make sense of my relationships and my surroundings now. And it's hard to navigate. And this morning, I actually have a good friend who was on my podcast, David Staub. He and his wife had an amazing experience with ayahuasca. Amazing. They started this whole community called Magical, and it's all about her healing and their experience together. And then they have this community of people where they promote healing and self-healing, and it's a huge support community, and there's all these people in there. I mean, it's been growing very rapidly. They've got like, I think 1,500 people in there now, and everybody shares their story and supports each other, and it's really intriguing just to watch because they actually posted their first podcast episode today, or actually last night. He sent it to me to listen to, and this morning I listened to it, and it was amazing. It was amazing to hear Megan's story. I mean, she's been through so much abuse. It's like almost unbelievable. Like, I was listening to the stories that she was recounting from her childhood, and especially of her stepfather and the demonic things that he used to do to her. And it was almost like I was listening to like a fictional story, because I just couldn't even believe some of these things that existed, or that these characteristics or these actions would exist in another human being. It was just like, it was amazing. And it was even more amazing to hear her recount her story with such grace, poise, and love, just for what she's been through that made her into the person she was today. I mean, that was just so amazing. And, through listening to that episode and through some of the insights that I've been coming to the past couple of days, I realized that I put almost no energy, like no true mindful, intentional energy into outward things. So what I mean by that is into other people, into being present with them and really listening, really wanting to learn about another person, wanting to spend my time learning about another person's experience, wanting to spend my time mindfully reading a book that someone else wrote. I just don't really put any energy into that right now. I put so much energy into myself and my own ideas and my own experiences. And I mean, that's good to some degree, but I just feel very self-absorbed, and I feel very selfish right now. And I feel like that selfishness and that self-absorption has really boxed me in my life, in my relationships, in just my day-to-day. And I feel like I've almost isolated myself with that self-absorption. And it's a big lesson. And I reached out to Megan and David today, because I talked to David on Marco Polo. It's an app where you just, instead of texting, you like speak. It's like you record yourself and you like message back and forth. It's pretty cool. But I reached out to David and Megan today, and I left them a message, and it was, as I was leaving them a message, it was very interesting, because I found it hard to almost do, because it was vulnerable, because then I would have to, if I was to speak truthfully and let them know that they really helped me this morning and that I actually listened to this hour-long podcast from start to finish. I mean, I don't ever really do that. I feel sometimes so self-absorbed that I don't outwardly put any energy into anything anyone else has created, which is not good. I don't like that. So I was just captivated by their podcast, and I was actually surprised myself that I was so captivated and that I put so much energy, and it felt so good to do that. And then on top of that, I reached out to them and left them a message. I did the Marco Polo thing and left them a long message about it. And that felt hard to do, because then I had to admit to myself that someone else helped me and that someone else inspired me. And I was like, wow, this is a really big lesson for me on how hard it is to truly and vulnerably admit to someone else that they've helped me and inspired me, and that I actually genuinely liked what someone else did. Because I'm always on the receiving end of that. I have been pretty much my whole life. I've just been a performer. Everybody tells me what I do is great. And that sounds cocky. I really don't mean for it to, but that's just like what I've been exposed to. It's like, oh, Ashley figured it out again, or Ashley fixed it again, or, you're so smart, or this and that. And, I'm starting to really not I don't really like to hear that, because just the narrative that's built me up to this self-centered, egoic person. And so I was listening to their podcast this morning, and I was thinking about their movement, and it's hard for me to say this, but like a part of me was jealous. A part of like the Cain spirit in me, you know, the story of Cain and Abel, a part of me was jealous. Like, man, they're really listening to their truth, and I can feel it. And you know, they're having this podcast with all these people that have healed from holistic methods, and it's like, damn, that's what I want to do. Like, and I almost got jealous and envious. And then I was able to tap into that feeling and then realize, like, okay, well, hold on. I mean, it is true jealousy and envy, because those feelings did come up, but then it's like, wait a second, this is the self-absorption trying to come up and take over, and you trying to take the spotlight, and you wanting to be the person that's the center of attention, as opposed to taking a step back, taking the back seat, and being vulnerable and open and admitting that you admire what somebody's doing, that, you know, you're proud of them, or they inspired you. And I saw myself in real time doing that. It's like I felt the jealousy and envy come up, and then I immediately changed gears and switched it over to admiration and inspiration. But I had to be vulnerable to do that. And it was new, and it was scary for me. And then I sent them that message. That was a vulnerable thing for me to do. It was new, but I felt so good. It felt so good. And this theme is coming up in my life more and more, that taking a back seat, being vulnerable, being humble, saying you don't know, and trying to not have the answers, it just feels so much better to live this way. So much better. And gosh, sometimes I get these insights and these realizations, and then they just kind of float away with time, because life happens, and the day happens, and the weeks pass, and you just kind of fall back into your own patterns. But I really hope that I don't lose this. I really hope that I can continue to channel this humility, and maybe carry it into mending some of my relationships, being more open, opening myself more, being present more. Megan in the podcast talked about how she did daily affirmations and all these things to kind of rewire her brain and change her brain programming. And I mean, that really inspired me, because I feel like sometimes I sit here and I want things to change, and I want to be where I'm not, and I want to, you know, my relationships to look a certain way, my life to look a certain way, and I almost like sit here and wish upon a star, as opposed to actually doing the fucking work, doing the work and putting it in, getting up every morning and changing my mindset, and, you know, doing the things that are hard, and calling the person that you don't want to say that you're sorry, just all these things that I want in life. I just feel like I'm going to openly say it, that I'm not working for it. And it's a good reminder for myself to, you know, you get what you put in, you get out what you put in. And I've been wrapped up in my own damn self, and I feel it. And the podcast in the past couple of days, and that experience I had, the descending into the underworld chaos, that episode, that's where it kind of started. It's been compounding ever since. And then that episode today that I listened to on the Magical podcast, that really, it just kind of, it hit for me. And I feel it. I want to work on this, and I'm I guess professing it outwardly to the world for whoever is listening to me right now. So yeah, good lesson for me. And it's hard for me to admit this kind of stuff because it's kind of the opposite of who I've constructed myself to be in the world. It's the opposite of the narrative I've had of myself, of always having it together and always having the answers and being the one to fix it and being the healer and just fucking knowing everything. Like, damn, Ashley, like, you don't know everything. Just trying to, like, it's hard to restructure that. These narratives that we have of ourselves and these ideas that we have of ourselves are so deep and they're so ingrained. And, you know, these experiences will come up from time to time that question those narratives, and they hurt. And that's what I've been going through the past couple of days, and they hurt. And then because they hurt, I feel like we have a natural tendency to kind of run from them and to go back to what we know. But that doesn't feel right. It's really starting to not feel right. I really want to move towards this more humble, vulnerable state, and I think that openness will lead me closer to where I want to go, where I envision as, I don't know, my ideal, my higher self, whatever you want to call it, this openness, this vulnerability. I think that'll lead me somewhere good. At least for now, that's what I think. So I'm going to kind of go with it and see where it takes me. But all right, well, that's the end of this flow for now. So that is all. I actually lied. That wasn't the end of what I had to say, and that wasn't the end of my flow. Well, it actually was in the moment, but then I actually had a conversation with my dad just now, kind of about what I just talked about, and I just wanted to add probably a couple more things. You know, it's the concept of truth is very interesting because, you know, especially when for me, when I figured out the concept of truth with Jordan Peterson is the one that brought it up for me, you know, speak truthfully or at least don't lie. And then I started to realize how much I lied around me just to get out of things. I mean, even the smallest thing, you know, even if it's like, you know, do you like the sweater I got you? Oh, yeah, I love it. Even when you don't, you know, stuff like that. I just realized how much I lied and how much I wanted to speak truthfully. But it was hard. And so when I learned that concept, it was like, okay, I'm going to try to speak truthfully. And all these areas of my life just started coming up where I had very mixed emotions, very confused emotions. I wasn't sure what I thought of things. And so I would just try my best to speak truthfully. And it was very clumsy. And the past couple of years, and that's where I see a lot of my relationships and a lot of the people that I've known or friends or family, I just isolated myself from them because I was acting truthfully or speaking truthfully at the time. And because speaking truthfully is so hard to do and it goes against everything you know of yourself and there's so much resistance, you almost have to like do it. And, or at least for me, I almost did it without a regard for the other person's feelings or emotions. And that's because I am largely a people pleaser, and I have sacrificed my own self and my own thoughts and my own feelings for the feelings of other people and pleasing them and doing what they wanted. And so if I were to have let their reactions come into me and overwhelm me, then I just would have continued to sacrifice myself over and over again, because I would have never really learned how to speak truthfully myself if I were to just go off of what other people thought. And so, I mean, there are so many things I've done. Gosh, in hindsight, when I look back on the last couple of years, like we had maybe close to 200 people invited to our wedding in Hawaii, and people bought plane tickets and booked their hotel rooms, like non-refundable. And like in the 11th hour, about a month and a half before, my husband and I basically uninvited 90% of those people. Because we realized that we wanted a very intimate wedding with just people that we felt very close to and very comfortable with. And I basically announced it in a text message. I talk about the wedding story a lot, like in my posts, and this is what it is. Yeah, I announced it in a text message to my entire family and to my bridesmaids and the groomsmen, and I basically uninvited everybody in a text message. I got a lot of backlash for it, as expected. You know, a lot of people were hurt, but at the time I was so shut off to other people because I was just so fixated on myself and my truth and what I believed to be the truth and how I felt. And I just was basically like, too bad. Like, you feel this way? Like, this is what I want. This is my wedding. Like, deal with it. And in hindsight, I look back and I'm ashamed and I'm embarrassed of that part of myself that had no regard and no compassion and no empathy and no care in the world for the hurt of other people. I just I feel sad. Like I don't want to be that person. And those are the relationships I'm talking about that I feel like I kind of need to mend because, my family and I have kind of, ever since that happened, it has not been the same with me and my extended family, like my aunts, my uncles, my cousins. It just hasn't been the same. And it's hard because I have to admit fault and vulnerability in not having a regard for anyone else's emotions, and it's fucking hard for me to do. Like I said, I want to always have the answers and have everything figured out, and what I mean by that is just I don't want to admit that I'm wrong. I don't like admitting that I'm wrong. I'm always right in my head, in my own little internal reality, and it's not good. I mean, I have so many stories like the wedding story. It's like I was friends with a girl for 20, I think it's 23 years. And last year, or 2 years ago, actually, wow, it's been that long. No, last year. It was last year. Last year, I wrote her like a 7-page letter. I mean, there was so much behind this, so it's not like I just woke up one day and did this. There had been very, very many months of thought behind this, but I just like kind of something propelled me to write her this like 7-page letter. Her and then another one of her friends who was kind of in the mix of all the stuff that was going on, and I basically ended the 23-year friendship in a letter, dumping all of my thoughts into it, and that was it. And I realized in that scenario I just didn't really have a regard for her and her emotions and her thoughts and her feelings. It was like, this is how I feel, this is what I think, and this is my truth, and this is what it is. Like, just like this very shut off person. In the past couple of days, and again with this experience I talk about with the podcast this morning, I really am seeing how self-absorbed I am and just selfish, and how I have put no emphasis in really learning about others and caring about others and loving others and being present with others and developing that sense of compassion. It's so deep within me, and I feel it, and I'm actually a very compassionate and empathetic person. I really am. I feel it often, but I don't show it. I keep it inside. And it's funny, it's interesting. I often criticize my husband for doing that because he's a very compassionate and empathetic person, but he doesn't show anybody. And it's like, this is interesting, right? I criticize him a lot for that. And like I said in one of my other episodes, it's like, listen to your own advice. Like, what information are you volunteering and preaching and trying to fix in another human being? Because oftentimes that's what you want to hear yourself, and that's what you want to fix in yourself. And so I really want to work on letting this compassion and this empathy out for other people and not being so damn selfish, because there's a time and place to be selfish. You do got to stick up for yourself. You do got to speak up for yourself and know what you want and go after it, and really prioritize that first and foremost. But you can't push people down and basically ignore and shut other people out in the process. You can't do that. I mean, you can actually. You can do that. I misspoke there. You can do that, but from my personal experience, it doesn't feel good. And it's coming full circle. It's coming to light for me. It's amazing. Life is so amazing how experiences come together, and you learn things about yourself, and you uncover blind spots. It's fascinating. So I wanted to add that little tidbit about truth and how it's a messy process, and things happen that definitely leave a scar, but I don't think that I think that a lot of things are repairable if you speak truthfully, vulnerably, openly, and honesty. And it's something that I'm going to have to do here soon because I feel like I have to. Something is guiding me to do it. It's not going to be easy, but I feel like I need to in order to grow into the next version of myself, closer to who I want to be. So anyway, I think that's officially the end of my flow. Wanted to come on here, share those additional thoughts. And until next time.